Hello and welcome back. Well, today we're finally going to get to the stand on this bandsaw restored. We're going to build kind of an Art Deco, kind of follow the same theme as the bandsaw itself. Like this right here is the same as the upper guard. That's that same feature. This right here is 1x2 tubing. We're going to cut an arc in it right there. This will be fumed oak along with this right here. The backside will look the same, and I'll put some shelves inside and that'll be a door. Going to have the same color scheme as my hard-inch lathe cabinet. I don't know if you remember that. Let's take a look at that. It's kind of a mess right now, but that'll be the color. That color is also the same color I used in that. So I think that'll look pretty good. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, I got my trammel here set up at 8.5 inches between the center point and the marker. And I'm going to mark this arc on this 18-inch piece. I got this set at 9 inches here, so we should be centered. Yeah, that came out pretty good. And you can flop it over and they still line up fairly good. So we got to cut pieces to weld in there. So it needs to be, well, I'm going to roll them so it'll be, I'm going to make it 12 inches long and then trim it to size. I think that's about right because I want to clamp it right there. It'll draw it in. Well, now I got to flip it over. These uprights right here are what I just drilled a hole in, and they will have these bearings mounted right there. That'll be wheels. I've used them before like that and they work pretty good. Then I'll put some leveling studs right there in the angle iron. Okay, now I'm going to drill some 3/16 holes, and I'll countersink the outside of this rail, and that'll be to screw into the wood panels that hold it all together. Drill them 1 inch in, 3/4 inch wood. That'll create a slight offset there that'll be just inside the radius of the pipe. This drew together a little bit when I welded it. I'm going to spread it apart when I weld it to here. This will drop down through it, and then I'll weld it. Definitely want to make it a hair oversized, because after I weld that, opening that up would be very difficult. Doable, but difficult. Well, it started to warp on me, so I've got it pinned down. It's got about an 1/8 inch warp, and I've got it bowed the opposite way about almost 1/4 inch. I've welded quite a bit on it on the edges right here, on the corners. And I'm hoping by welding the top, which I've got tacked right now, it'll hopefully keep it in that warp position somewhat. I like it. It's good that it's tight like that. It'll stay put while I'm welding it, or a little easier anyway. I think what I'll probably do is cut a piece of wood to fit in the ends so that I can keep everything aligned perfectly before I weld it. These are my leveling bolts that I forgot to drill the holes and tap before I got ready to weld it. Fortunately, I saw it before I welded it. This would be hard to do after I welded it. Okay, here's my quick and dirty adjustable wheels. It's got a leveling adjustment on it. I don't trust my frame here to be 100% square. The knurl stops the bearing from coming off the end, and I drilled the hole off center for the adjustment. No, works good. Okay, this wasn't entirely planned out good. I'm going to have to mount some tabs on the inside of this to mount the wood to. That'll go in here, and this side will be a door. So I need a tab right here for the door to close up against. And I'm going to screw them in from the back side. If I had planned it out good, I would have just welded the tabs there. Would have been perfect. But that's all right. Right now I'm going to make those tabs. I got some 2x2x8 clamped in my vise here. Something interesting. Put a couple of 5/16 nuts on there so that I could clamp it all together without, you get that pumpkin seat effect because the jaws are not parallel. But should work pretty good. Well, to mount these right here, probably mount them right there and close to the bottom, I need to clamp them to this, and this paint is a little bit wet, so I'm going to kind of jump around on the things we're doing. Right now I'm going to cut the wood to fit in this. I've got it fairly close to accurate size, Probably just need to make it a little bit shorter. To get an accurate measurement, I'm going to have to grind or sand some of that, sand a radius right here to clear that weld down there. I just set up the router table to cut a dado in there, and I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way up, and then I'll cut these shorter so that I end up with just inside the radius, like an 1/8 inch down from the surface of that bar. I think that'll look good. Well, I'm going to remove about 3/8 of an inch and then try it. I think it'll be a little bit more than that needs to come off, but you can't add it back on, so. Now, I'll sand that and we'll fume it, make it dark, and then install it for good. Next step is to make those doors. That's going to be a big project. Okay, I haven't got any 14-inch wood for the doors, so I'm going to have to edge glue this wood together. I'm going to use my doweling machine. I made a video on it. I'll post the link in the description area. Anyway, to do that, you make lines that intersect the two boards. Then you take the lines and line it up with that line on the boring machine. If you look closely at the end grain on that wood, see the growth rings? They're vertical. That means that's quarter sawn lumber. It's usually fairly high priced lumber, but the neat thing about quarter sawn is it will lay flat. Normally a 14-inch wide board, like we're going to have on this door, is prone to warpage, but this will stay flat, or relatively. Something else kind of interesting about quarter sawn white oak, which is what this is lateral raise. Some people call it tiger oak. It's got that figuring in there. I'm using these things called gluing dowels. They're pre-made. They got grooves in them to hold the glue. They're relatively cheap. Okay, what I'm making here is that flower pattern that's the same as the bandsaw. And hopefully it'll work. So let's give it a try. Okay, according to my drawing, they're 26 degrees apart. So that'll be I'll have to figure out a better way to measure. We're just going for a test here. They look too far apart. Okay, this was 20 degrees instead of 26. Doesn't seem like a big difference, but I believe it's going to make a big difference. I think it'll look a lot better. We'll see. Oh yeah, I think so. I think that'll look better. So, oh yeah, that's it. Okay, it's 13 7/8. Probably need about an 1/8 inch gap all the way around, so let's say 13 5/8. It looks all right. Well, except for the burning, it looks pretty good. I don't know if I can sand that burning out or not. Maybe that when I darken the oak, it won't show up too much, I hope. Well, I made these things, and I got a plan. This one will be right here, and this one will be right here. That right there is 3/16, which is the same as that hole right there. I'm going to drill and screw that in, and then cut the head off and use that as a pivot point for my hinge. I'll probably cut off about half the threads because that's a super long screw. Well, I decided to leave off that decorative panel right there. I think it looks pretty good without it. I'm getting ready to fume this oak. If you're not familiar with this fuming process, it uses, well, you can use like 10% ammonia or 4% or whatever it is, household ammonia, but this is 28% ammonia, pretty bad stuff. But you put a small amount of liquid in a can. I got a little tin can in there, and try to keep spaces between the wood, but it gets in everywhere anyway, and it'll take it about 12 to 24 hours to darken. And that wood right there will end up looking like that wood right there. Of course, that's got an oil finish on it, but it darkens it up considerably. Well, that about wraps it up for this week. Well, I'm glad I got that. I don't have to worry about breathing that stuff. You can feel it on your hands when you're handling that can. The fumes coming off the can, it'll make little cuts and stuff tingle. Can't imagine breathing it. Anyway, that wraps it up for this week. Next week will be the final episode where we put the bandsaw together, and we'll put the stand together, and we'll put a sprocket and chain on this side, on the slow side, and replace the flat belt drive. I really like the flat belt drive, but the flat belt is slipping on the high torque side. The high speed side is doing good, so the chain will resolve the problem. But I'm really looking forward to trying this thing. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Be sure and subscribe and ring that bell.